By the way, have you watched any of the Russell Brand videos? Do you know who he is?
I know he is, yeah.
Yeah, he's gone. He's independent. He's not a conservative or anything.
Right.
But he's got some very conservative. He's one of the new radicals. Yeah, he's gone Joe Rogan on us.
Yes.
But he's very his YouTube videos are pretty out there. It's and he takes some strong stance. But anyway, a 1 and a 2 and here we go.
He hit record.
Yep. He hit record. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Dave.
Hey.
This is Eddie Huff.
Hey, David Van.
And we're ready to go with some fresh black coffee.
Yes.
Thumping the music to you. Stay strong, everybody. This is the Newsboys. All right. Hey, listen, this is Saturday, February 19th.
Yes.
19th,
Yeah.
or 19th in your Flemish or Dutch, as they say. 19th. That doesn't even sound right, does it? That doesn't sound right. 19th. Anyway, hey, everybody. We're very glad to be with you today. There's a lot of stuff going on, but
Yeah.
We haven't done a Babylon Bee in a while.
Yes.
So I do have one.
And if there was a week that we needed a Babylon Bee, this is
We
it.
need a Babylon Bee.
Yep.
And in light of current news and what's been going on, I thought I would share something relevant. Canadian ATMs are now asking political views before allowing you to withdraw money. So before you can get money out of an ATM, out of a Canadian machine, a Canadian ATM machine, it will ask you some questions. Under new orders from Supreme Chancellor of the People's Republic of Canada, Justin Trudeau, all banks and ATMs across the province will now require anyone attempting to withdraw money from their accounts to take a small quiz on their political views.
Yes.
Let me be perfectly clear, said Chancellor Trudeau, while standing in a puddle of his own urine. Those with unacceptable views shouldn't have money. That's his view. These evil working class people being allowed to buy things and eat is a threat to public safety and national security. So starting today, all ATMs will screen people for unacceptable views before they can withdraw funds. Questions asked by the ATM will include, how would you describe your political views? What are your pronouns?
Oh, God.
Do you think Trudeau is the most powerful and masculine leader ever?
Oh, God. Beta boy.
That's a good one. Do you or have you ever listened to Joe Rogan?
Uh-oh.
Have you enjoyed it?
Uh-oh.
What lives matter? Do you live on land stolen from indigenous people?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Do you own a semi-truck?
Ooh.
Do you worship any other god besides Trudeau? Oh, man. According to sources, anti-mandate freedom protesters have already formed their own parallel economic trading in beaver pelts, maple syrup, and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Trudeau has promised to crush this parallel economy and make the remaining protesters bow to his divine will. As soon as he puts on a pair of dry trousers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got him scared. You know, it's interesting, but a video popped up this week. Yeah. And I have it somewhere on here. I don't know if I can find it or not. But it's a video of Justin Trudeau.
Fidel. Fidel Jr.
Fidel Trudeau. Yeah, Fidel. Yeah, in fact, did you hear the thing where there's speculation that he may be Fidel's love child?
Yes.
Yes. So
yes,
yeah,
the facial features are resound.
Yeah, and apparently his mom really was in love with Fidel.
Yeah.
But I have it on here somewhere. I don't know if I can find it. I won't find it on your time. If you get a chance to look it up, Justin Trudeau is expounding on how much he loves and admires Chinese dictators because of the power they have to make people do what they want them to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he thinks it's a good thing because if he could do that, then he could make people do what he wants them to do and just do good things for the world.
Yeah.
Just like the Chinese have done.
Yes.
I mean, and honestly, the good news, he's pulled the curtain back and explained and shown us exactly what these people want to do, what the left really wants to do. The difference between Trudeau and our leaders is they're being honest about it. The Democratic Party tries to couch it in democracy, democratic. If you look at our media, can you believe? In fact, that's what I love about Tucker. They take clips of each of all of these news people parroting exactly the same phrase. You know who started that? O'Reilly. It was on O'Reilly. He would show every, whether it's NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, you name the C in it. Okay.
White House. It was the Obama White House talking points.
Well, this was all the way back to Clinton. I mean, this preceded Obama. We don't even need to blame
That's
Obama.
That's true.
on
Rush
this.
talked about it back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s, it was one voice. That's why I remember they always said, he needs equal time. He said, I am equal time.
Yep.
One guy against the world. It was
Yep.
Rush against the House.
Yeah.
And how they all have the same talking points, which are apparently someone sends these out every morning and they all read them and they rehearse them and then they go out and they spew this crap out.
Yeah.
And the late one is a threat to our democracy, And they've even got Adam Kinzinger, that's an alleged Republican, which he's not. Adam Kinzinger and what's his name's daughter?
Cheney,
Liz, and these people. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, if they could hear themselves.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah, say something. That's it. That's enough. You said something.
Boom.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. I grew up central Minnesota, not far from the Canadian border. Used to spend my summers up in Canada at a canoe camp. And the funny thing
Wait. At a what camp?
Canoe.
Oh, I thought you said Canuck camp.
Yeah, there you go.
For those of you who don't know, Canuck is a Canadian. Another word for a Canadian.
It's a distinction without a difference.
And these Minnesotans, you never know what they're saying. Canuck, Canuck. But a canoeing as in.
Canoeing, So anyway, the Canadian dollar and U.S. dollar were basically a wash, right? And we had Canadian money coins floating around Minnesota all the time. All of a sudden, I go to, deposit some money in the bank, get a money order to, send to the paper company after I collected. I was a newspaper boy for the Minneapolis Star and Tribune. They were separate papers back then. Well, anyway, one morning I'm delivering. I still remember where I am, outside Mrs. Sparrow's house. And I'm just looking at the papers. I'm walking to the next house. And there was a quote there that rings true today. Because Canada fell in hard times, their dollar devalued, or it wasn't on par with the U.S. And it said, in the heyday of Canadian society, they benefited from French culture, British government, and American get up and go. It said, in these later days, they're suffering from French government, American culture, and British get up and go. And it's very much a way because back 40, 50 years ago, we had, Fidel's father, Pierre Trudeau, and he was the nemesis of Ronald Reagan, I remember, first few years, till they got rid of him and got Mulroney, and we had a long line of conservative Canadian prime ministers. And now all of a sudden, 40, 50 years, the people forget what they learned last time, and now they're going back to Quebec running the country.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I mean, it's really, really, really sad. I feel bad for the Canadian people. Fortunately, they have awakened, and they're showing us the way. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing that of all of the places in the world for the revolution to begin, it's Canada.
Yeah.
And the poor Canadian people are suffering badly from all of this. It's interesting, too, Dave, that the media is so badly stifling all of this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they should be ashamed of themselves. They really should be ashamed of themselves. I wish some billionaires would come, conservative billionaires would come in and buy some of this mainstream media and just start exposing and just cleaning house.
Yeah.
Cleaning house, because this is unbelievable how they are burying this. You see where the one lady died that was run over by the horses? You know, the Canadian
mounted police.
Well, I guess they were the mounted. It wasn't the Mounties. The Mounties are more like our highway patrol.
Right, red coats.
This was the
Rangers.
actual, like, city police there in Quebec, I guess.
In Ottawa?
Ottawa.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ottawa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and they came in, and it was a lady in a what do you call those things that the elderly...
A scooter?
I don't know if she was in a scooter or a walker or something.
Okay.
Anyway, they rolled over, and the horse trampled her, and the lady has passed away apparently now. There were two of them. One was in a scooter, and one was in a walker, and the one person passed away. And I mean, these are the terrible type of things. If that type of thing happened and she were a liberal protester, there'd be no end to it. No end to it. But because she's a conservative protester protesting the draconian measures, it's totally covered.
Right.
Covered up and covered over, and no one says anything. These people ought to be ashamed of themselves. And there will be a penalty to pay one day. There will be a penalty to pay, I promise you. You know, the fires of hell are waiting.
So on Tuesday, one of the truckers in downtown Ottawa was being interviewed by, I think, Newsmax, and he said, I just got word that the Canadian military all told Trudeau, we're sitting this one out. Do not call us in.
Wow.
Yes.
I wondered, because I knew they were planning that, and they never showed up or anything. So that, apparently he's got the police under his belt. Yeah. Like the D.C. police apparently are complicit in some of the stuff that happened. Yeah,
he's dependent totally on the Ottawa police right now.
Yeah, that's
and they're showing themselves to be horrible thugs. Right now, I'm watching live stream. The Last Stand is going on in downtown Ottawa.
Yeah, he may win the battle, but this is a war, and I don't think he's going to win the war.
You know what?
I think when the smoke clears, you'll see it's going to turn bad. It's going to, because the people at home see what's going on. They know what's going on. Yeah. And they're losing. And there'll be enough people that are sitting on the fence that will be affected by this, that will know that something is not right here. And it's time. And I think the same thing is going to happen in America. The only thing that disturbs me about our American protesters and right is we seem to have this habit and this almost need to advertise everything. We talked about this last week, that we always have to advertise what we're going to do. Yeah. Instead of letting it be a groundswell. Yeah. And organic. So now, starting this Wednesday, the truckers will be heading to D.C. And we've got to start and we're going to move to D.C. Instead of all of a sudden having trucks show up in D.C., have people come, and what we do with that is we just give the other side time to prepare. Yeah. They're going to prepare their anti-propaganda campaigns and to have everything ready, have the press ready, have their people to infiltrate ready. And this is the type of thing, this is what happened on January 6th. They had that already planned way in advance, and they headed us off at the pass. And we can't do that. We have to be smarter. We have to be smarter. We have to plan these things to be spontaneous. I mean, it's almost, you have to. The only thing that I've seen that really was spontaneous in the last, 10, 20 years is Sean Feucht's worship rallies. Are you familiar with those?
No.
Sean Feucht was a worship leader out at Bethel Temple.
Oh, sure. During the lockdown, he would have outdoor parking lot worship.
Yeah, well, they started at the beaches in Southern California.
Yes,
and then all of a sudden, thousands of kids and young people came, and they were just worshiping on the beaches, no masks, no nothing, and there were so many of them, and they didn't stop them. And then they started moving from city to city to city to city, and I think the last one ended up in Washington, D.C. It was a big one. and nobody stopped them or anything like that. They would just boom, you know, they pop up with thousands of people. And I believe those were very effective in a spiritual sense. You didn't necessarily see any physical change or anything, but I believe they had a lasting effect. And that's how things need to be. And that's how the trucker protests started in Canada. And it's funny, though, too, although, as you say, the last of the trucks, the semis are being moved out of there. The people are being moved out and so forth. It may look like he won the battle, but the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. I believe that through the blood, you remember Tiananmen Square in China?
Oh, I've been thinking a lot about
that. With the tank, with the one protester standing in front of the tank, the people that we didn't see, that were beaten, that were killed, that were imprisoned.
Those, crushed by tanks.
Right. Those are the ones that we didn't see, but it did enough to, I believe, make a change in China, at least for a while. We're back to more of a more subversive thing that
what
occurred.
We've got going on right now in Canada is nothing less than the Sandinistas of Nicaragua. They came into power through the electoral system claiming to be one thing, and then they got power and became something else. And, you know, it took weaponizing the Contras in order to take them down. And the funny thing was the Sandinistas were so full of themselves that they thought that they still had the support of the people that they called for an election, and then they lost. You know? But, you know, it's so sad. You think of who are the most natural allies culturally, the United States. For my lifetime and yours, I think of Canada, I think of Australia, and they become two of the most, you know, crushing tyrannies in the last 2 years.
Yeah, they've exposed themselves.
It's really
sad. Yeah, we pulled the curtain back. And it's happening in America too. It's starting to happen. We're starting to see what their true colors are. And it's interesting, as I said, they keep talking about the threats to our democracy. No, it's not a threat to our democracy. It's a threat to their dictatorial powers. They want the same power. They want the same thing that Justin Trudeau wants. He wants full authoritarianism.
Yeah.
These people have gone, if you look at it, think about it. Look at Liz Cheney. Where did she grow up? She didn't grow up in Wyoming. She grew up in Washington, D.C., in the seats of power. Dick Cheney, all his life, worked either in office or as a lobbyist for working in the Capitol.
Yeah.
Okay? And so all of her life, she's been in this whole Washington scene, and it's her idea, and she's been indoctrinated in this Washington thing. And so she's just like, honestly, she's no different from Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
She thinks that all of those people in Wyoming that elected her and others are nothing more than a bunch of deplorables.
Yeah.
There's just a bunch of hick people that don't know, and we need her to tell us how we should truly live instead of being able to live as we would prefer to live.
Yep.
That's the short and long of it. All of these people are like this, and it's got to stop. We have got to give back power to the people. Our nation was founded on the proposition that the people get to rule where they are. Your city, your county, your state decides what's good for them. So, for example, we live in Tulsa. We get to decide what we want to do in Tulsa. Tulsa is a part of Oklahoma. So we get to decide and help decide what the state of Oklahoma does, okay? If Tulsa isn't doing anything to harm the state needs to leave Tulsa alone.
Yeah.
Then Tulsa gets to decide something that we're not hurting the state and the other cities, and then that's it. If we're not hurting other states, leave us alone. And then the states, if we're not hurting the other states need to leave us alone, and so forth. That's really how it was set up.
I want to break it down even further. And I'm going to quote Thomas Jefferson in this. He said, what difference is it to me whether somebody worships one God or 20? It neither breaks my leg nor picks my pocket. In other words, if individual liberty troubles you, you might be a tyrant. That's really the litmus test.
Yeah, and that's why I say sometimes to our people on the right that I like to say you've gone so far right that you're back over on the left, because we like to use the weapons of the left
for our own outcomes.
Because we think the end justifies the means.
Exactly.
And we may not like a multi-headed God or whatever. We don't like that. So we're going to use our power to crush that. But we can't. So, for example, if the people don't want it, they should be allowed to vote and say, we don't want it. If the people don't want the 10 Commandments, then we don't have the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
But it should be up to the people. If the people vote and say, we can have the 10 Commandments, we have the 10 Commandments. If people say, we don't want a satanic symbol there, we should be able to not have a satanic.
And I'm going to say, the number one tool of turning the West, the global West, into socialists has been government providing health care. Because as soon as the government pays the medical bills, they feel like they have the right to tell you how to live.
Yeah. And see, the misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment has been a real thing. For example, basically what the 14th Amendment has been interpreted as is if one state says that we don't mind having gay marriage. So because this state recognizes gay marriage, the other 49 have to. Okay. And this is where I would say I wrote a piece many years ago about civil rights for black people has been interpreted as or has been translated to cover everybody, everything, sexual rights. Okay. So that because we allow interracial marriage, for example, and they use the 14th Amendment because so many states allow it. Now we have all 49, or 49, I'm like Barack Obama, all 40 states.
56.
Oh, was it 50?
Yes.
No, it's 52. It was 52.
Okay, yeah.
52. No, all 50 states now have to accept interracial marriage. Okay. That wasn't in they used the 14th Amendment for that. Okay. That's not, they could have done it differently. Okay. They didn't need the 14th Amendment. Okay. Basically, the states within themselves should have been allowed to and able to overturn that. Okay. Just by having the states vote and the powers within the states suppressed that and kept that from happening. But had they just allowed it to work out, it would have worked out anyway. Okay. That's just my belief. And I come from an interracial marriage. My parents were married in 1954 when it was illegal in 13 states. When we came to America in 1959, it was still illegal in 13 states. And therefore my father had orders, military orders, for us to move to Louisiana. But because it was still illegal, mixed marriage in Louisiana.
Really?
He got the orders changed to New Mexico. Okay. That's how we ended up, and it changed the course of my life.
Yes.
And so at that time it was still illegal in Louisiana. So, but I believe eventually Louisiana would have changed its law. It would have had to. I mean, that's the thing. People just don't trust, and the big lack of trust, I bring it back to spiritual things. Okay. I bring it back to spiritual things. People didn't trust God. People didn't trust God, so they take these things into their own hands.
Oh yeah.
And so they
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Dave. I just got my arm cut off. What in the heck? This is funny. But go ahead. Tell me what's funny.
It's one of my things, Eddie. You and I are both Bible school students, is like people will say, well, it should be in the Bible, but it's not there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. This is one of these inferred things. It's in the Bible. No, seriously. It's just knowing God. When you know God, you truly know Him. You know that in the fullness of time, right? Galatians 4:4, in the pleroma of time, in the fullness of time, it would have happened. Okay. It's just the way God works. But anyway, and if you want to get an understanding, and I'll put this a little closer for y'all. Y'all have sinned.
Yeah, that's right.
It deals with a lot of this. It doesn't deal with that in particular, but it does deal with the fact that, so much of what's happened racially in America and the world, was unnecessary. Okay. And it's because people don't honor God. They don't trust God. And God, if you trust God, if you honor God, He will take care of things. And so much of our downfall today is because we are not allowing God to do what God does.
Yeah.
We're not allowing God to be God. It's we have become God. Or tried to be God, and we can't. It's a tough job. Yep. It's a tough job. I confess, I've tried a few times in my own life. If you're honest, you have tried, and it usually turns out badly. Yeah. So, as we take a break now, since we have diverged from Canada into God, what God has done, hasn't been allowed to do, whatever, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back after this. Hey, by the way, while we take this break, I'm going to go ahead and speak about my book. It's called Y'all Have Sinned, and it is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Yeah. And eventually we'll get it up on one of our websites.
I hope we do a good review of it, Eddie, you and me. Yeah. As a project.
So look for it. If you'll go to Fresh Black Coffee at gmail.com, freshblackcoffee@gmail.com, give us your address and everything. We'll keep you abreast of everything. Okay? Anyway, in the meantime, we'll get back to the show. Okay, I'm gonna go solo here for a minute while Dave changes the battery on our camera number 1. So it's up to you, camera 2. Hey, boy, that was a deep little message there. But seriously, so much of what's wrong in the world today, and what's ever been wrong with the world, is because man has turned from God. And if we would just sit back and allow God to be God and us be us and do what He would like us to do, it would truly, truly, truly save us from so much heartache, trouble, and everything in the world. It's really not that big of a deal or that hard of a task. I do a teaching, it's on discipleship. And one of the things I talk about is the fact that it's not difficult. It's not difficult to follow the things of God, okay? Or let me put this, I'm sorry, it's not complicated. It's not complicated, but it's not easy. I know that sounds crazy, right? That it's not, it almost sounds like an oxymoron. Oh, hold on, Dave. I'm sorry. I know, okay. It sounds weird that it's not complicated, but it's not easy. So what I mean by that, God has very simple, in fact, bottom line is love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and love your neighbors yourself. Okay, that sounds real simple. Yeah, and it is a simple thing, but it's not easy. Yeah.
Can I put what you said in my terms? Is I used to think that if my convictions were good enough for me, well, they're good enough for you too. And I tried to turn my own personal convictions into doctrine for everybody else to follow. And
right, but I'm not even talking about just interpersonal. I'm talking about on a personal level. Yeah. Okay. So, for example, it's very easy. Don't watch pornography. Mm-hmm. Don't kill somebody. Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't steal. Okay. Mm-hmm. Things like that. It's very simple. I mean, okay, don't kill somebody. Don't steal from somebody. Don't curse. Don't whatever. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple, the 10 Commandments. I mean, they're laid out there. It's not hard. Okay, let me read. What does he really mean by that? You know, it's not really hard. But because of our sin nature, it's like every fiber of your being is wanting to sin all day long. It starts when you're a little bitty child. You're already wanting. Mom says, hey, go pick up your clothes in your room. Well, I don't want to. I want to finish watching this TV program. Come eat. 5 more minutes. No, now. Not now. Give me 5 more minutes. No, I said now. What does the Bible say? Obey your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, things like this, okay? You know, don't mess with your neighbor's wife. Don't steal from your brother, your sister. Love the Lord your God. I mean, how hard should it be to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul? But all of a sudden, you're tempted. Well, man, I've heard about this Buddha guy. I've heard about Muhammad. I've heard about Baha'u'llah. I've heard about blah, 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 Hindu, you know, Shiva, Krishna, blah, blah, blah. You know, all of these things when it should be easy. My big example, one of my big examples that I used recently, I think, is, or I've been led to think about it recently, is the children of Israel. Oh, in fact, actually, it's in the book. I used that in the book. Okay, so they get to the Red Sea. Well, first of all, the 10 plagues. Okay, God does these miracles, these 10 plagues in Egypt. Pharaoh lets them go. So they take off. They get to the Red Sea. God parts the Red Sea. They're walking through walls of water on dry land. So they're walking. I mean, how bigger of a miracle do you need? So they're walking through this. They get to the other side. Pharaoh's army's coming, drowns them. 2 weeks later, God brought us out in here in this desert to kill us. You know, instantly they've forgotten everything that God has done for them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And this is what I'm saying. So it's very simple, but it's not easy. It's because the Bible says our flesh is warring against the spirit. And the only way to overcome that, some of you may have, I don't know how badly I do it here on TV or probably when I'm with you. I have Tourette's. I had Tourette's worse but it's a tic disorder now. It's like little twitches or I do this. And it used to be really bad when I was a kid. Well, my son, when he was a kid, he had it really bad. When he got real nervous, they had a big game against Bayern Munich. We live in Germany, and Bayern Munich is this big professional club, and he played for, at that time they weren't in the Bundesliga, they were in a Bavarian league. It's FC Augsburg, they're in the Bundesliga now. Anyway, and he had this thing, he would jerk his arm, and it got so bad, he was crying, his arm was hurting. He was 10 years old or 11. Anyway, he was jerking his arm, and he said, Dad, my arm hurts so bad. And he couldn't help it. So I had him lay on the ground, and I told him, just lay there still and focus on nothing but that arm. And every time he wanted to do it, to just not do it. With every ounce of strength in him, don't do it. And force himself. And so he lay there. I could see him. He was just focusing, you know. And I had him do that about 5 minutes. And for 5 minutes, he was able to overcome. And it broke the habit. Wow. And that's what a lot of tic disorder is. It's just a habit you get into. Yeah, a rut. Yeah. And once he broke that for 5 minutes, he didn't do it. Wow. It's funny how that's all it took. Yeah. And so it's the same with certain other things, alcoholism, cigarettes. Once you can break the habit, it may take more. It's going to take more than 5 minutes. Yeah. But there's certain patterns and certain triggers that, you know, when you see a certain thing or you're in a certain room in a certain place with a certain person, it just triggers this habit that you want to do whatever you're going to do. Yeah. So that can happen. So you have to, there's sometimes you have to do things, but then I believe once you break those, things for a certain, then God will supernaturally help you to break the root cause of what it is.
Wow.
So anyway, that's just some things I've learned over the years, because I've had my share of things that I've habits and things I've had to break.
I wanted to go back to what we were talking about here right at the beginning of the segment. Jesus talked about liberty. The Apostle Paul talked in great deal about liberty and maintaining our liberty. And coming out of the Pharisaic sect of, Judaism, he experienced something that he had to reject. God's word's full of principles. Man, especially a devout disciple, somebody who really wants to honor God, will take those principles and then start making methodology in their own life. Convictions. Well, I really shouldn't go to the movies on Sunday, or, because the Bible says honor the Sabbath. So we start adding all of our little regulations in that. And so what happens is, over time, we don't separate God's principles from our methodology to honor Him.
Preach.
Yes. And so then we do what I was just telling you about. We start thinking, well, if my convictions are good enough for me, they're good enough for you too. And really, Dan Beller was my pastor for years, and he put it this way. He went to Dallas Theological. Great pastor. He said, Christian liberals tend to take away from the Word of God. They cast doubt, and I don't know if that really applies to me or that. But he said, fundamentalists tend to add to God's Word with their own church rules, regulations, dress code, all this. Follow God's principles, you'll do fine.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we need to do, is to trust people. And I'm not going to take that in the political sphere, where I said, Pierre, Justin, Fidel, if you don't trust people with liberty, you are a tyrant. And you know what? The church is full of tyranny as well.
Yeah. It's interesting you said, because I came upon that realization a long time ago. It was in Uganda with these kids asking me questions about drinking and dancing, for example. So I had to come up with an answer. And I was taken back to the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever thought of this or come upon this, or we've talked about it. I don't think we've ever spoken it. But in the garden, when God told Adam about the fruit, the apple, whatever it is, he said what? Don't eat the fruit. The moment you eat the fruit, you die, right? Mm-hmm. You eat the fruit, you die. So Eve meets the serpent, and the serpent talks to Eve, and he's wily and crafty. And so he asks Eve, what did God say? And Eve says, if we touch the fruit, we die. Mm-hmm. So wait a minute. God didn't say anything about touching the fruit. He said, eat it. So where did Eve get the idea of touching it? Mm-hmm. From Adam. Mm-hmm. Adam knew, well, wait a minute. This woman, she may not listen. So I'm going to put an extra little step in there that don't touch the fruit.
Don't even touch it, yes.
Because if she don't touch it, she won't eat it.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is, once you've touched it, I might as well eat it.
Oh, yeah.
So when you Baptists tell your kids don't dance, the problem is you're telling them you don't dance because you're afraid that if they dance, they'll lust, and if they lust, they'll have sex. The problem is, if they ever dance, they say, I've already sinned, so I might as well go ahead and have sex. Yeah. So you're not really helping. And so when these kids in Uganda came, Brother, we've been told that we shouldn't dance. And I said, well, I don't see anywhere in the Bible where it says anything about not dancing. But let me ask you a question. Can you dance without lusting after the girl? Can you drink wine without wanting to get drunk? And these kids go, they say, well, you've just convicted yourself. You can't, can you? So it's better not to do it. So that's the real key. Can you or can't you? If you're going to lust when you're dancing, if the purpose of dancing is because you want to lust, and it's going to cause you to go further if you're going to drink to get drunk, like in Oklahoma. In Texas, they say, I'm going to get so drunk, I'm not going to remember what I did tomorrow. That's just stupid. First of all, Why would you want to do something where you're not going to remember tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's not a good time. If I have a good time, I like to remember the good time I had.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I'm gonna get so drunk I don't remember what I did.
Yeah.
That's just stupidity. Okay, but anyway, getting back to the point. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That we tend to put rules in there that aren't there. Bingo. Democrats. Democrats do want to have more laws with less with less punishment, right? They're going to come up with umpteen thousand gun laws and umpteen thousand rules and umpteen thousand this and this, but less punishment, right?
Yep.
Where Republicans or conservatives want to have less gun control, but if you shoot somebody, kill somebody, they're going to kill you. You get the election. You know, a Democrat, you can kill a household of people and then you get life in prison with possibly parole in 10 years, right? But Democrats are going to put you in jail because you're carrying a gun into a bank or into a movie theater if you get caught and you don't even use it. Or, you know, people I know in California, a guy forgot he had a gun with him and he gets in his car and drives down the road, gets a ticket for speeding and they find a gun on him and they want to put him in jail. I mean, stuff like that. Silly stuff, right? Crazy stuff. Somebody's disciplining their kid and the kid has a bruise on their behind and they want to take their children away from them. When you have actual abusers that get a good lawyer and they get off. So it's, you know, you've got to have laws that are just, laws that are firm, and laws that make sense.
Yes.
Right? Because as Jesus said, and I like to tell my wife all the time when I'm going, I'm exceeding the speed limit, but I'm following the traffic. The laws were made for man, not against man.
There you go.
My favorite. That ought to tell you a little something. Hey, listen, let's go ahead and take another break now, and we'll come back.
Yeah, when we come back, I've got an update for us on Give, Send, Go.
Okay.
And what's happening with the money.
Yeah, and I want to say a little something about Bitcoin because our dear friend Justin, as we spoke at our thing where he wants to, he's taking people's Bitcoin accounts and banking accounts. I mean, it's gone crazy. So, yeah, we'll discuss all of that when we get back.
All right.
I'm Jeff Davis with Just a Thought. From the world hindquarters of dubious information, it's Fake News Friday. There was a report that 50% of the police quit over the Canadian convoy. Someone is mathematically challenged. President Biden made another fake claim that gun makers are the only companies that can't be sued. Not true. Former President Trump denies that they flush government papers down the toilet. By the way, every White House has very good shredders. Big Story says the real fake news crisis is coming from corporate media. Thanks, Captain Obvious. CNN's resident garbage patch kid, Ryan Stelter, echoed a false claim that Justice Sotomayor worked from home because Neil Gorsuch refused to wear a mask. Justice Sotomayor said it wasn't true. Ted Cruz tweets about Austin Powers were fake. One said that Joe Biden thinks he's Austin Powers. On a sad note, a father in Florida released information about his daughter's death due to fake prescription pills. Under the heading, You Can't Trust Anything, HP warns about fake Windows 11 installations that can infect your computer. Just a thought. I'm Jeff Davis.
Hey, as we come back, I do want to tell you my book is out now.
Yes.
It's for sale, and starting tomorrow, ads will be running on KRMG. I had my first book signing last week. It went well. So if you want it, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on barnesandnoble.com, or you can get us at... You can go to freshblackcoffee.com. You can go freshblack.coffee, and you can call me at 918-770-8886, 918-770-8886.
Eddie, can I say something?
Yeah.
I found another Leia in Eddie. Eddie's got Leias. There's a website that's got some of the best coffee I've had. It's called UgandanMist.com, and it's Eddie's coffee barista brand, And he's also got the book going up there too. You can pick it up.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot.
So if you want a good cup of coffee while you read the book, it's all right there. UgandanMist.com.
Yeah. It's good coffee, by the way. It's straight from Uganda. It's from the Rwenzori Mountains, Rwenzori, Rwenzori Mountain Range. It's a range between Uganda and the Congo. And for those of you that don't know, there are two types of coffee. There's Arabica, which is the real popular one, and there's Robusta. And the Robusta is grown at sea level or ground level, and the Arabica is grown up in altitude. The Robusta has a more bitter, it's a strong, earthier coffee. It's the manly coffee. It's what men like to drink. I guess I must not be a man because that's what they use at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Even though it's all women that seem to like that. But I like the Arabica, that altitude grown. But I have to tell you a funny thing, an interesting thing. The Arabica, the beans are grown at altitude. And like I said, it's a smooth, very smooth coffee. But what happened, they found that parasites like to eat the roots and it kills the plants. So what they've done, people are so smart. They take the Robusta roots at the bottom and they graft the Arabica into the plant. And so the parasites they won't eat it because it's too bitter for them. That ought to tell you something about Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
It's too bitter for parasites. But anyway, they won't eat the roots. So the Arabica plant grows unimpeded because it's got the Robusta roots.
Nice.
And then and so that's how. But anyway, this is grown there, and we import it, and actually we've only got probably probably about 10 boxes,
10 cases,
10 cases of it left here, and then we have to get some more. But it's very good. It's very smooth. The difference between this. It's got a full, really hearty taste, and I think you got some, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a real smooth.
Oh, very smooth.
Very smooth, but full.
Because I agree with you about the Robusta. I mean, it's like, God, if I run out of paint thinner, I might use the Robusta for paint thinner. Yeah. It's rough.
Yeah. But this is a real smooth coffee. We get Imperial coffee here in town that I was going to say burns it, but roasted for it. No, they don't burn it. They do a great job. Imperial Coffee. It's a great company. They've been gracious enough to roast that for us. But yeah, you can get your book at those places. And so far, I've gotten great reviews. People, I don't know whether to be insulted or complimented, but people tell me, "Wow, this is actually really good." People that know me.
Why? Because people around, and most of what you've done here has been in the Tulsa area, and people know you personally. My buddy, who's my college roommate, went on to be a pastor. He says, "Dave," he says, "you know what makes somebody an expert?" I said, "What?" He says, "If they traveled more than 50 miles to come talk."
That is true. Even Jesus, remember, a prophet is without honor.
Except in his own country, amongst his own people. Yeah.
So anyway, I found that to be true. So I've got a couple of 5-star ratings on Amazon.
Yeah.
In fact, that's the only ratings I have on Amazon. But no, I think you'll enjoy it. There's a lot of information that I know you will never find anywhere else, and I try to deal with that. When I watch a lot of my black colleagues or fellow black conservatives, I get a little disappointed. I get a little perturbed sometimes because they always deal with the same issues, and they don't go to the heart of what is really going on and what is really ginning up a lot of the problems and issues dealing with black and the problems that we have in America racially. And that's what I attempt to do in this book.
Yeah.
And I deal with biblical history, world history, and socio-political history. I go into Darwin, I go into Darwin's Children. I go into what's her name? Margaret Sanger. I deal with her. I deal with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I deal with the Barbary pirates. We deal, I mean, stuff, James Monroe, president, past president. I mean, seriously, you will read stuff that you'd never even imagine could be in a book called Y'all Have Sinned.
Yeah.
But, so it's not just some religious book. It deals with a lot of things. I go into history of slavery, not just American slavery. We're talking slavery. I talk about Shaka Zulu and Africa and East Africa and all of that. So, no, I think it'd be worth your while to, and if you order it directly from us, if you're in Tulsa and you get it directly from us without mailing, it's only $15. It's normally $17.98. It's only $15 or $17.95, I guess. It's only $15 flat. If you order it by mail, it's $20, I think, and then if you get it through Amazon, it's like 22 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's enough of that.
I want to say something that's unique about it, and what I have read about it and talking to you for the last 7-8 months, I've come to understand about you. You remember the scene in the movie Remember the Titans? Denzel Washington, as head coach, has to turn to one of his assistants, and he says, "I've been watching you. You're coddling the black kids. You're not being tough on them like you are the other kids. You make them weak." And President Bush Jr. coined the phrase this way. He says, "The soft bigotry of low expectations." You're tough on folks on race issues, and you don't differentiate between what color they are. And there's a way, a courage, a boldness with which you're approaching this that I don't hear from very many people. That to me is what sets this book apart.
Right, but what I try, if you want to use the word pick on, I go after the race baiters, but I don't pick on them in the normal way that you see a lot of people, your typical black conservatives you see on TV. I go after more of the root. And what I go after probably even more is your white race baiters.
Yeah.
The white ones who are making money off of critical race theory. And
the ones that Malcolm X said to the black folk, beware of the white liberal.
Right. And I go after a few conservatives, white conservatives too. I try to be fair. In fact, I go after St. Ronald.
All right.
Yeah, there's a one thing that you'll be shocked. You will be very shocked when you find out. There's one chapter where I get on Ronald Reagan. Where I think you will really be shocked when you find out something.
And you have to. You have to.
I want to be fair. I want to be honest. I want to show everyone that. That's why it says. So this is how I like to do this. Okay, the title is "Y'all Have Sinned." Okay, and I like to put it this way: all have sinned.
There you go.
And not only all have sinned, but why?
Oh, boom! There you go.
Yeah. So that's basically what it's a little trick, a little play there. Okay, all have sinned, and why all have sinned, and so there's enough in there to make conservatives squirm a little bit.
There we go.
And above all, I go after the church and what they have and have not done.
Yeah.
I'll tell one little story. Okay, just one little quick story, and then we got to get. I'm going to get to the main story, main story. When I was after I graduated, I got saved about a month after I graduated from college, and so I went back to Texas Tech, back to Lubbock, and I led one of my fraternity brothers to the Lord, and so I wanted to find a church, and there was this church called Trinity Church there in Lubbock. Became very popular, charismatic church there. And so I'm looking in the paper and yellow pages in those days for this church, and I couldn't find it. All I could find was a Trinity Baptist Church. And I said, "Well, that must be it." So I said, okay, we're going to this church, and 7 o'clock in the morning, I pick him up, we get ready, and we go to this service. And so we walk in, and it was all white people. The median age was about 70.
Yes, I've been to one of those. I've been to a few of those.
And here's these two young black kids, 21, 22 years old, with giant afros, bell bottoms, and, you know, I mean, and it was like, uh-oh, I think we're in the wrong church. So these people came up to us, and this is Lubbock, Texas, West Texas, where you would think racist capital of the world. And, oh, how are you guys this morning? Yeah, why don't you come on in? And so, okay, so we sat down, we sat through the meeting and everything. And the people were absolutely the nicest people in the world. We sat there, and they welcomed us, and they came up and shook our hands. Said, we sure hope you'll come back. And you know, they were just, I mean, it was almost like they were pleading with us, begging us to come back.
Oh, sure.
And I will never forget that as long as I live, how these people were just so warm and cordial with these two Black Panther lookalikes, you know, coming into their church on a Sunday morning. And it didn't shake anything. Nobody, there was no, you know, nothing. They were just, they went about their business, worshiping God and preaching the sermon, and we sat, and they welcomed us and wanted us to stay and join them for fellowship and come back. So that was, yeah, I'll tell you, these are all experiences that I talk about that and others that, you know, changed my life. These are things that I'll never forget, and things that you can't neglect. You can't shake those off. These are things that you have to recognize and give people credit for. And these are things that people want us to overlook. And all they want you to see is racism, racism, racism. And I'm so tired of it. I am so tired of it. And there's not enough people speaking to the true heart of it. Not enough people, you know, what we've got is people, Black conservatives, attacking Black people, and not enough Black people taking up for white people. Yeah, does that make sense? In other words, when you see them, they're all going after Black people, but they're not defending white people, telling the stories of white pastors, white Christians, the white people, Yankees that fought in the Civil War and died, the stories of the presidents, which is in the book too, and the laws that were made right after the Declaration of Independence that put into motion Abraham Lincoln's setting the slaves free and bringing us to where these are all the things that nobody talks about. And they've been buried. And we've allowed the Democrats to co-opt. We've allowed the Democrats to co-opt the message, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. Hey, Dave, I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry, but we've taken up some time. I want to finish here with the main story that is on everybody's mind. And if not, it should be, okay? And then after, you can close out with give, send, go. But I want to talk about Ukraine.
Yes, please.
Which is, okay, the things that I think we need to know. I'm going to take a couple of minutes here, and then we can talk about it, okay? Here's some things you need to know, okay? The fight has begun. There's shelling. I saw it this morning. There's been shelling. There was a school that was bombed or attacked, and there was some fighting this morning, and it's going on. But here's what you need to know. It's not Russians, okay? It's not Russians. It's rebels within, it's Ukrainian rebels that they're Russian sympathizers. They're Russian Ukrainians, okay? Now,
Ethnic Russians.
ethnic Russians that live in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's who's doing this, and they want to be rejoined with Russia because this used to belong to Russia, to the Soviet Union, and then it was cut off, and so they want to go back and join Mother Russia, okay? So even Fox isn't telling you this, but so don't be fooled if they're trying to make you think that Russia's attacking. The other thing, I've been listening to a lot of stuff you don't hear everywhere. One of the reasons a lot of people think, people that really are in the know, don't think Russia will or can attack is because apparently the soil in the Ukraine is very, very rich. And the tanks can't move. This is one of the things that bogged the Germans down. When the Germans attacked, they didn't realize, and their tanks got stuck in 3 feet of mud.
Yeah.
And they can't, trucks and tanks can't move because they just get stuck in that.
During the Carter years, his Secretary of Agriculture is Bob Berglund from the Red River Valley of western Minnesota. And Bob Berglund went over to Ukraine. It was kind of one of those culture exchanges. And they were talking about farming techniques because, and people from the Red River will know this, it's like a black clay. It's not clay, but it has that consistency. And that's exactly, you nailed it right there.
Yeah. So anyway, so for all of these reasons, it's very unlikely that that's going to, so it's my belief that, and I'm pretty ready to bank everything, Russia is not going to attack the Ukraine. What I think is going on, Russia is playing this up to drive oil prices up, okay? They're making not millions, billions of dollars daily on oil. Every time oil prices go up in the world markets, Russia ching, ching, ka-chink, okay? So they are cleaning up, and they can get Ukraine without a shot ever being fired. They can let these rebels within, okay? The Russian-Ukrainian rebels can get what they want. Now, here's the other thing that they really want. They want the seaports, okay? For those of you that don't know, the Caspian Sea and Black Sea are the port entries to the Mediterranean, and it's a very narrow. Well, it's
They're
not
warm
that
bladder
narrow.
ports.
Yeah, it's not that narrow. It seems narrow, but it's fairly wide. But it's a narrow gap that goes and allows entry to Russia, all of the seaports and everything.
Like
and they go
Constantinople, right?
Right. It goes through Turkey and all, but they want that. They want to control that. Okay. So they don't want America to have that, or the NATO allies, because that's very powerful. It controls the gateway to the Middle East, and to the Western Europe. Okay, so all of these things are very important, and so all they really want, I think, is this eastern part of Ukraine. I think that's all they really want is the eastern part, and it's also very rich in minerals. And in what they call it, rare earth minerals. There are a lot of there's so much stuff there in that western part that if they get that, they don't need anything else. They will, because what happened in these last several years since the Soviet Union has been broken up, and then especially in the Trump years, Russia's become very poor. They've become poor, and especially with Trump, he very much suppressed the oil industry. Yes. He suppressed the oil industry, oil dependence on Russian oil. Germany helped him with that pipeline, and especially when Biden allowed them to build this new gas pipeline from Russia to Germany.
The Nord Stream, yes.
That Nord Stream, that he'd be foolish to threaten that. So they don't need that, okay? And Biden, what an idiot he is, he let them do that. Now, what I think, he's wagging the dog because it's more, he plays this all up. It's taken all focus off of Hillary Clinton, the Clinton scandal now, which has come to light, the Durham investigation. Nobody's covering it except Fox News Max and those. And all the other mess that he's
Hunter
in.
Biden.
Well, yeah, Hunter, of course. And I talk about there's two things being wagged here. It's like we're wagging the dog, and Russia's wagging a tiger. So we got two different animals. We got a dog and a tiger going on. I've got one more thing to go, but go ahead. What do you want to say?
Well, the other thing that's why Biden likes it is they want to raise fossil fuel prices so high to try to usher in the going green.
Right.
You know, the solar
which is silly, because we'll go green. We will totally weaken our own selves while Russia becomes richer, stronger, and they will control all of the real energy and power. Because everything, if we did go, let's say we went totally green, we would weaken ourselves to the point where fighting. You cannot fly airplanes and shoot missiles on solar power and wind power. Okay, I mean, think about it. Just think about it. What missiles, nuclear bombers, and rockets can you fire on solar power or wind power? The Russia will own that, and we're sitting there with nothing, basically.
Yeah.
We will be totally. I mean, there's so many things wrong right now with what's going on, okay? But here's something else. The military-industrial complex, okay? Our military-industrial complex, they're going to get rich. They're going to continue saying, oh, we got to send more and more arms to not only Ukraine. What about those other countries? Poland, we got to stock them up. We're sending troops already into Poland, Lithuania, Latvia,
Yeah, the Baltic states.
all of the Baltic states. They need it. You know, it's gonna money. We got to send troops. They welcome those American dollars for those troops that we're sending. So all that's happening. Military-industrial complex, and then China. While we're all focused, oh, don't look here, don't look here, don't look here.
Yeah.
China next. You watch. Taiwan. Taiwan. They're next.
Yeah.
What are we going to do then? What are we going to do then? We're going to wag another dog?
Yeah.
Another little chihuahua going to come over here while China gobbles up Taiwan?
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. All right, one final thing I want to say about this. I want to remind everyone about a place called Kosovo. Okay? Do you remember the Kosovo War? 1998.
Yep.
What that was about, the Albanians, okay? There was a former country called Yugoslavia. It was broken up into different states.
Marshal Tito's.
You had Kosovo, you had Serbia, Croatia, Azerbaijan. No, I'm sorry, not Azerbaijan. What is it?
Macedonia.
Macedonia, And so, anyway, in the bottom, Serbia had a big chunk. Well, all of a sudden, the Albanians said they had people living in this area which was Serbian. Well, they wanted their independence. They wanted to join Albania, okay, but they wanted their autonomy, and they called it Kosovo.
Yep.
So what they did, they decided they're going to fight. And so we sided with the rebels that time. And we sent bombers, and we fought at that time against the Kosovars.
Yeah,
the
Serbians.
I'm sorry, we fought against the Serbians to give them their independence. Right. So it was the exact opposite situation. That time, the rebels were good, Kosovo was bad. This time, Ukraine good, the rebels are bad. So who's on the right side? Why? What's the difference? The difference is we want control of those minerals. We want control of the oil and gas. We want control of the waterways. That's the difference. That's the only difference that you have here and you had there in Kosovo and Serbia at that time. So it's just, you've got to understand what all is going on here. And the person that has the clearest eye on all of this right now is Tucker Carlson. He's calling it out. And sadly, even our Republicans in Congress, I believe, are wrong on this. They feel they want to be on the right side, but they're confused and they're on the wrong side as well. So they're voting improperly. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about all of this. That's where you've got the military-industrial complex that's winning. You've got the hawks that want to, and the Democrats want to look all hawkish, take the attention off all the problems within, help themselves in the polls. They're dragging our country to our doom. Really, our country's in bad shape, and the only thing that can help is prayer. The only thing I believe that's going to save us is prayer, and I believe prayer will work because it's going to continue to bring these things to light, and it will. I mean, it will work. Prayer works. Okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, Dave, having said that,
update on a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the whole GoFundMe thing going on, and then all of a sudden, GoFundMe on their own decided, Canadian truckers, we don't like what you stand for, so we're just going to take the money, the millions of dollars. So last week, you and I were talking about this, and we said, hey, look at here. There's this Christian missions operation called Give, Send, Go that they're helping this Adopt a Trucker program. So they just came out with a statement here, and I want to share it with you. He said, the questions keep on coming in, so we want to answer. Number one question people are asking is, have the truckers received the funds that we gave you to give them? And he said, here's the thing. He said, the Canadian government, there's been steps taken to prevent the funds from being frozen. Give, Send, Go says all of the money as it comes to us stays in a U.S. bank until we can connect with a recipient that's qualified, and we set up with them in the banking routing that they want, and then we release it to them on that. They can't say for sure that none of it's been
confiscated.
Yeah, but, and here's my prediction. So that's basically what they had to say. The next hammer to drop in Canada is going to be a banking war. And it's not going to be just Canada. It's going to affect the United States because conservatives are going to start saying, where are we keeping the money?
Yeah.
And you got to find out who your friends are politically.
Yeah, it's interesting because apparently they've even been able to confiscate Bitcoin.
Wow.
They've even gone after those. So I found out that I didn't realize this. Okay, so you've got things like Coinbase, you've got others.
Whole bunch of digital money. Yeah.
But I found out that there are private, like if you have your own wallet, you keep your own wallet, and there's avenues out there. I don't know. It's like green wallet and red wallet or something. There's different, they have colors on them. But if you do it through those, you have your own, and you have to learn 12 words. There's 12 words you have to learn, and you can write them down. Just keep them yourself. You don't let anybody know what these are. And you don't keep them online. They can't ever get into it, tap into it. But if you're using one of these other venues, which most people are, then they can get into it and they can take it. But that's what you have to do. But even Bitcoin is not safe. That's why Bitcoin has been losing money over the last several days because the Canadian government is even frozen and taken, confiscated.
I think we're going to have a banking disaster in Canada very quickly. Very quickly.
I did find out, though, in the U.S., community banks apparently are not run by the federal government and are free of that so far at this point. So I don't know if they will remain that way, which speaks good for T.W. Shannon because he's over the community bank here in the state.
Yeah, and I'm not going to name names here, but I'm getting ready to make some moves on where my bank.
We're at a federal credit union, but I think we're hey, listen, we better wrap it up, huh?
Yep.
I think it's time to go. Hey, listen, everybody, thanks. It's a little shorter this week, but we put a lot of information into this thing today, didn't we? So, thank you all for listening. He said, pay them more.
Pay them more.
Not in your life, buddy. Hey, thank you all for listening this week. We've had fun. Keep praying. Keep praying. It works. It works. We'll talk to you next week.